summer for you, for those that maybe haven't found out yet, some life-changing things going on right now.
Right, super excited. I accepted a position as running back coach and associate athletic director at Dickinson State University, working for head coach Pete Stanton, a guy I've known since high school, a guy that's really well respected, and I'm super excited about it. Finished up a 30-year teaching career, which was great, but I'm excited for the new challenge and excited to be on a college campus every day.
Something you've been looking into or had in the back of your mind recently?
Well, the ball just kind of got rolling. My son, of course, has committed to play there, and they had some movement on their staff, including Jay Schillinger going to the Grizz, and so I gave Pete a call and just asked him, you know, what are you doing with those openings? And, you know, we started a conversation that ended with an interview on campus and a job offer, and so that's how it got going.
Biggest challenge in your mind right now, moving from this high school game to that college game, working more with quarterbacks here recently and now into the running backs?
Well, I worked with running backs in 2005 at Carroll, and so that was great. We had a great season. Tyler Emmert and his entire offensive crew, Coach Van Dies, Coach Howlett, they were all great. So that part won't be a big change, but I think just being at the campus every day will be a lot of fun. You know, football's football, so that part I don't think is going to be a huge difference. Recruiting and the things that I have to do with associate athletic director, but you know, the recruiting part will be a lot of fun. I have Eastern Montana. It's obviously an area that I'm very familiar with growing up there and coaching there also, so I think it's going to be a smooth and exciting transition.
You mentioned Emmert, didn't lose a game in high school. Van Dies jokes, didn't lose a game until he got him at Carroll. What made that kid so special? 4 championships, 2 player of the years. I mean, you talk about top 5 quarterbacks.
Yeah, he's an all-timer, no question. He was so calm at all times, and that was the key for him. And unbelievably accurate. He ended his career over 70%. And I tell people, if you did that for a game, people thought you had a good game. If you did it for 5 weeks, people would think you were on fire. He did it for 4 years. His accuracy was incredible. His knowledge of what our offense needed to do and what the other defense was supposed to do or was going to do was phenomenal.
Mr. Osweiler, when did the growth spurt hit, and when did you start seeing strides of this kid could be a legitimate quarterback in Montana, Division I, and we'll talk about NFL later?
I saw him throw a corner route at about 45 yards on a dime, and I was like, wow, that kid's a sophomore. And the spring of his sophomore year, he had already committed to Gonzaga at that time for basketball, and he came up to me and said, hey, Coach, I was thinking about maybe sending out some video to a few schools. What do you think? And that was really the day I knew he would end up in football, because I knew the kind of interest that an athletic 6'7", 6'8" kid would generate. And there's not many kids from Montana that can say, hey, you think I should send one out to Florida State, Alabama, you know, Washington, and Arizona State, and those kinds of places, and you say, yeah, that's a good idea. And I got a call back from Florida State in the middle of the summer, and they asked me right away, hey, is that kid really a sophomore? Is he really that big? And that's really what got the ball rolling. I mean, I had on my whiteboard in my classroom, I had phone numbers of coaches that he needed to get a hold of or that were calling me. And it was long. A lot of big-time schools, obviously, and a lot of, at that time, WAC schools and so on. So it was a pretty long list of schools. And anybody that had a Montana guy on their staff, that was kind of the go-to person to call me. Stanford had a guy named Tim Drevno who had been at Montana State, but I visited with Jim Harbaugh when he was at Stanford. And, of course, Arizona State had the connections from Montana with both Lubick and Dennis Erickson, and so they were kind of, they did a great job recruiting him.
When in high school, or what was that, whether it was sophomore, junior, senior, that defining play that let you know this kid's going to be all right going forward down the road? Was there something that really, whether it was in practice, maybe it was that one you were just talking about, was there ever anything that you just said, yeah, this kid's got the talent to go perform and go beyond?
Well, it was really in 2 parts. Number one, physically. He just didn't look like anybody else. But his preparation was great, and his knowledge and his want to be great. He definitely wanted to be great. He didn't really talk about the NFL, but you knew it. And you definitely knew he wanted to be a big-time Division I quarterback, and he had the tools to do it.
In terms of the college career, I mean, getting a chance to it, did you go down and watch any, or did you catch
Often.
any? Yeah, I mean, so that's not something that a coach gets to do all that often, is go watch his guys play in a Pac-12 type of league and on the ESPN and Fox Sports and all that kind of stuff. Just what was that like, and watching him, you know, have some pretty good games down there?
Well, I went down there every spring break. He was down there, which was a lot of fun, and coaches treated me great while I was there, and he was great to me. We went out to dinner often. Before his first start against Oregon on the road, he called me up Monday night and said, "Coach, I'm starting." So I took off with my family Friday night after our game in Kalispell. We drove all the way to Oregon and then caught him. It was a night game, and the atmosphere was unbelievable. He had a tough night that night, but the atmosphere was unreal. And he came over in the pregame and said hi, and it was great to see him, visited with him after the game, and also watched him at Washington State and down in Arizona. It was a fun time to follow him for sure.
Now into the NFL, that, you know, first year that he really filled in for Peyton was outstanding. I mean, it was a huge part of their Super Bowl run. Then the money that Houston threw, I mean, you know, one of the huge contracts and stuff like that. Have you talked with him since just about some of the struggles from that great year, the Super Bowl run year, to now trying to find that fit again and say, hey, I'm still that guy that I was those 6, 7, 8 games, whatever it was?
You know, our visits are much more short text messages at this time, to be honest with you. I mean, in college, I think he's just so busy now. I actually texted him on the this morning and said, hey, headed to the TV station to talk about you, and he said, very cool, good luck. And he also called on my behalf to Dickinson State. I texted him and said, hey, you know, I'm going after this college job. Would you mind giving them a call? And he did. And so it's a lot more family stuff and how you doing, and a lot less football stuff, to be honest with you. I think that he's at a point where he's got a different perspective. He's certainly all in on football, but he's also got a young family that he's dealing with. And so, you know, our conversations are just a lot more family oriented now. He always asks how my family's doing, how the boys are doing. He's very thoughtful in that way.
You getting Twitter banters about the old days. For people that don't know, maybe some of your playing days, from baseball into football, whatever it holds.
Well, my career was fairly minimal, that's for sure. So the Twitter banter would be easy to go back and forth. But you know, really, I was just a guy who loved playing sports, and that's kind of what got me into it. My high school coach, Jim Person, asked me to help out with the freshman team when I was before I left for college, and that kind of hooked me. And you know, I was just a guy that studied the game and liked the game. As far as my abilities, I would say I was first team all Glendive, and happy to be that.
Did you ever imagine you'd be in as many stops as you've been and still continuing?
No, not at all. You know, I look in the mirror sometimes and I can't believe I've coached this long, and yet I really enjoy working with young kids. I love working with, you know, people that have you know, the want to be great. That's my favorite part of coaching, is working with people that, you know, are trying to achieve greatness in themselves, whether it's on the field, off, combination of both. And that's my favorite part of working with kids.
How long is this long?
I've been coaching 31 years, so next year will be my 32nd fall. You know, if you count up the time that I've was a ball boy in Little League and then started playing Little League, I think I've either coached or played football for about 44 of my 52 years. So it's just kind of part of what I've done, along with, you know, coaching some youth baseball and being a part of that. And I've enjoyed watching my boys grow up in their baseball careers and football careers. So.
And then finally, it's not like we won't see you in Montana, but what are you going to miss about physically living here, being here?
Well, not so much the physical part, although it's obviously a big change, but just the people around here. You know, the people at Capitol have been awesome to me. both on the coaching staff, Kyle Mahelish and all the guys on the staff, and then you know, my math department friends at Capitol High. So just a lot of great people in Capitol. I have family here, my sister and her family, and so we'll miss those people for sure.